As we speak, the president is en route to Finland for that meeting. A lot to talk about, but let me start with this. What is the timeline of the summit? Will there be a formal meet and greet and then a face-to-face meeting with just the two leaders?
Yeah, Rachel, so here's how the summit is going to go. First thing in the morning around 9 a.m., there will be a meet and greet at the residence of the Finnish president for the First Lady and for President Trump. Then President Trump will have a working breakfast with the president of Finland. After that, at around 1 p.m. local time, the president will then come to the presidential palace, which you see behind me. It's a 19th century presidential palace. This is where he will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The two will meet and sit down in a face-to-face first. Then they'll break out into an expanded bilateral working session for a working lunch. And following that, at 4:30 p.m. local time, which is around 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, the two will have a press availability. So there's going to be a joint press conference between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. So this American press is going to get a chance to go at Vladimir Putin. Rachel?
Emerald, a packed agenda for the two leaders. Emerald, we covered the historic Singapore summit between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Now, while President Trump says he thinks meetings with world leaders are important, what does he say specifically about the summit with Putin?
Well, you know what? In an interview this weekend, the president said that he, didn't have high expectations for this meeting, that he's going into it with low expectations, and that he doesn't think anything bad will come out of it, but potentially some good could come out of it. But you know what, Rachel? This is something we heard from the president. We always have this similar sentiment from the president when he heads into a high-level meeting like this, that he goes in with low expectations. He doesn't give a lot going into it. He says, well, I'll let you know after I have these talks. And then he says he has low expectations, and then things turned out and seem to be, there's questions of how it's progressing. But for that North Korean summit, they signed a deal on denuclearization, which is something we did not expect from that going into the Singapore summit based on what the president said. And I think you also have to look at the fact, too, Rachel, that the two leaders have scheduled a joint press conference. That belies everything that's being said in the media, that this is not going to turn out well, or that there's nothing coming out of this, that there's going to be no takeaways. In essence, the fact that the two leaders have already scheduled a joint press conference says that they think they have something to say post-meeting. Rachel?
Interesting to see how it all plays out, Emerald. What insight are you getting about the president possibly pushing for the extradition of those 12 Russian nationals? Of course, that indictment announcement was made on Friday by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein just a few days before the summit.
Yeah, you have to say, Rachel, that timing was not coincidental, doing that on the Friday before the Monday of this big summit. Now, the president did say in that same interview that he hadn't thought about asking Russian President Vladimir Putin about the extradition issue. Now, Russia and U.S. does not have an extradition agreement currently, so that's something that's up in the air. In fact, the president's ambassador to Russia, John Huntsman, said that he didn't really know what the president was going to do about that, if he was going to ask Vladimir Putin to extradite those Russian nationals that have been indicted. But so we're really not getting a lot of sense here from U.S. officials, even Ambassador Huntsman, as to if the president is going to ask about that. But we do know that he is going to bring up the issue. He is going to talk about meddling. But what the president said in that press conference with joint presser with Prime Minister Theresa May is that he's going to ask, but he doesn't expect to really get a big response from Vladimir Putin onto, he doesn't expect this to be a Perry Mason moment where he's like, aha, got you, Russian meddling. So, it doesn't, we don't know if he's going to ask to extradite, but we do know that that issue is definitely going to come up between the two leaders. And you can definitely bet that the press is going to ask about that during the joint press conference tomorrow. Rachel?
Emerald, so the president may consider pushing that issue, but at this point it's up in the air. Again, it will be interesting to see how it all pans out. Of course, we will have live coverage of that summit between the president and Russian President Vladimir Putin right here on One American News. Of course, our very own Emerald Robinson covering it all from the ground there in Helsinki, Finland. Emerald, thank you so much for that live report.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One American News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One American News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.